two people from RStudio, Joe Cheng here. Let's applaud him. And you, hey, right there. From what I know, JJ started the company with Joe, and they wrote most of the code for the RStudio IDE, and they came out with this great idea that you can have a desktop application running a little web server, and everything is JavaScript, and it looks nice. It doesn't look like all those shitty IDEs written in Java. And you also have a server component, and you can run it on the server, and all the great features we are using, right? So, and he also was lead developer, creator of Shiny, so he's gonna talk about Shiny. I've been using Shiny for about 2 years, and it's great. My boss likes it. I do some analysis, and with a few more lines of code, I can turn it into some interactive web application that they can use. They like using all those sliders and changing parameters and see what happens. So if you work in a company, you probably. So I heard some people are replacing their BI products with Shiny, so that's great. And then he will talk about HTML widgets, something he's been working on lately, and he's the author of the neatar package, by the way. So let's thank them for coming here.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about Shiny today. How many people here have heard of Shiny? Well, you, sir. Sorry. How many of you have built at least one Shiny app? Oh my goodness. All right. Okay. All right, so just real quick about me. Really, the main purpose of this slide is to tell you this. I have no stats background, so if anything ridiculous stat-wise comes out of my mouth, just beg your forgiveness. Yeah, I work at RStudio. I work on Shiny, and I've been a web developer for quite some time. So it makes sense that I'd be working on the web application framework for R. So I don't know, maybe by this point we don't need to go through it, but I like to remind myself the motivation for Shiny in the first place. So first, I mean, we really love R. I mean, RStudio, the company, is all about R, and the reasons are pretty obvious. It's the state-of-the-art statistical power, obviously all visualization goodness, I don't need to tell anyone here, and really most of all, it's the community. It's the set of packages on Cran and on GitHub. It's meetups like this, people's willingness to share information. There's lots to love about R. But sort of before Shiny came along, we really saw it as R gave you a pretty personal experience, not a shared one. RStudio, we tried to make a lot of things easier, but still mostly it was you sitting at a console creating artifacts for yourself. And when things like knitr did come along and help make it really easy and natural to create artifacts, they were usually pretty static artifacts. You're only really answering the questions that you yourself are asking. And furthermore, in the last couple of years, we've just seen an explosion of really compelling stuff happening in the browser, JavaScript libraries that are doing things that can make your jaw drop, and sometimes are even useful. So it wasn't obvious how you could take advantage of all this energy and cool things going on in the JavaScript world and take advantage of them from R. So Shiny was really invented to be an answer to all of those problems. So what is Shiny? Shiny is interactive web applications around your R analysis. If you've heard my spiel before, I'm sorry, after these 2 slides, we'll start covering some new ground. Really, this is important for me to emphasize that Shiny is not a replacement for your general purpose web application frameworks. It's not Ruby on Rails, it's not Django. It's designed specifically for people like us who work with R, analyze data, visualize it, and want to share that with others. Really importantly, no HTML, CSS, JavaScript is required. And that's a lot of people, when they first hear about Shiny, they kind of automatically write themselves off before they've even taken a look because they assume, oh, this is going to involve web stuff. I'm not a web guy, I'm a stats guy. We build Shiny primarily, first and foremost, for you, if that's you. However, I've been building websites since 1996. I could not stand the thought of working full-time on a web application framework that hemmed you in and kept you from utilizing the full power of the browser. So Shiny also lets you fully customize and extend it with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Shiny gives you modern web UI. By modern web UI, well, I started saying that 2 years ago. Now I think it's traditional web UI, but basically, you don't hit a submit button and wait while the Internet Explorer thing spins. Ever since Gmail, I think it's kind of set the expectation that modern apps react quickly and do Ajax-y type things. So Shiny is designed to work in that way. And it gives you attractive defaults. So if you just throw together your analysis and put it in a basic Shiny app, you'll at least get a reasonable experience using Bootstrap. But we let you customize it infinitely, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Designed to integrate with existing JavaScript libraries. And we're not going to get into this tonight, but the thing that's really different about Shiny versus any other web programming you may have done, if that is your background, is that it uses reactive programming model, which has started to really pick up steam in the JavaScript world, but as of 2 years ago, it was something that almost nobody had used. If you work your way through the Shiny tutorial, which I hope to convince you if you have not done that by the end of tonight to put that on your to-do list, you will find out much more about this kind of stuff. Okay, I usually start these presentations with a really simple demo, usually involving Iris and K-means, because whatever. And I don't know, after the 7th or 8th time giving that demo, it started to feel a little stale. So I'm just going to see if we can just do Hello World together. We'll start with an empty IDE, okay? I may come to regret this, but let's see what happens. I'm regretting it already. Can you guys read that in back?
Yes.
Yep. What does it say?
It says, coming out, hello world.
Okay, so let's start building a Hello World Shiny app. I just blanked out. Okay, let's do this. All right. Let's load the Shiny package. Every Shiny app is composed of 2 components. One is the UI, the user interface that the end user is going to see. Oh. And that's going to be our user interface. Bell logo is going to animate. Okay. I'm going to try not to breathe too hard. So for right now, I'm just going to put Hello World is going to be our entire UI. And then you put in a server function, which we'll explore in a moment. Okay. So now that I've got these 2 things, I can call Shiny app, UI server. I should note, if you've written Shiny apps before, this may not look typical. It's not idiomatic. This is a new style of writing Shiny apps that's primarily, frankly, I think good for demos and for sending emails. But this is a perfectly prominent way to write your Shiny apps as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just source this file, and we'll see what happens. OK, we get the world's least exciting web application. So hello world. So let's start putting some interesting things here. A lot of Shiny apps follow a similar layout, which I'm going to just stub out, and then we can talk about it. Okay. well, let's just start with this. Okay. All right, so I changed it from a simple string, hello world, and now it's got a little bit more to it. Okay. It's almost the same, except now we've changed the font. And with the H1 tag, that's the only bit of HTML-isms I'm going to force on you tonight. H1 just means a heading of the maximum size, the maximum priority. And fluid page is just a wrapper we use to bring in some of these nice visual defaults and some other formatting that we're going to use in a second. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a sidebar in. Okay, which is also not very interesting, but we have somewhere to park some controls now. So let's put something in there. Let's do a select input called dataset, and braces equals plus package datasets. Anyone have a favorite? Anyone have a favorite data set that won't come there? I'll be pressure. All right, let's see what that says. Okay, choose a data set, and here are a bunch of data sets. Okay, what just happened? First of all, what are all these incantations? Turns out this is all just HTML. And you can see that by me just executing it. Oops, when it's not busy. I just executed it, and you can see that it is literally just HTML. What is H1 hello world? That is just H1 hello world. So any one of these components can be broken down into its own little chunk of HTML. That's all these things are. Main panel is just a div with some weird class that you don't need to worry about. So I've got an input now. The next thing we'll want to put in is an output, something to visualize. Some R calculations happen, and then we populate outputs. And those outputs can be plots, they can be tables, they can be JavaScript widgets, they can be just text that you print out. It can be any number of things. And the important thing is that we can do all this without needing to expose you to. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, we can do all this without you needing to know anything about HTML, HTTP, JavaScript, or anything like that. I'm running out of improvisational material. Try sure. An output into this. Okay. Well, you know, the first thing we'll do is let's put in a textual dump of the data set that we've loaded, and then we'll plot it. So just bear with me for a moment while I type. I will come back to it. I can't multitask that well. Okay. And then I will stir this data set. Let me just start with this. Okay. I'm taking this data set and I'm stirring it out, and I get garbage. That's not right at all. So let's go back. This needs to be verbatim text output, which is what you do when you've got console output, and it needs to preserve white space. So, okay, here we go. Now this is looking good, right? Now let's make this even more beautiful than that. I'll put plot, and then plot, plot data set. Hopefully that'll just work. Okay. It didn't work. Okay. So now if I pick plant growth, does something. Okay. So what are we doing here? So first, on the UI side, I added two outputs, verbatim text output and plot output. That's a hint to Shiny about how it needs to present these outputs in the HTML. This string dump is an identifier that we're going to use to tie logic to that output from this other chunk of code down here. And the same thing for this plot. So this first identifier, dump and plot, lets us ID these specific elements. It's the same thing for select input. Select input, it's pretty obvious what choose a data set is. It's a label to show the user. It's pretty obvious what choices is. It's all the options that are going to be in the dropdown. And selected is which one of these by default is going to be selected. But this first item, data set, is also an ID. So now we've got one input with an ID, and we've got two outputs with IDs. And now it's our job in server to tell Shiny how these go together. So every server function has a signature that's something like this. This is what Shiny expects you to do when you create a server function. It takes an input, an output, and a session, and all three of these are just provided to you by Shiny. It's none of your concern how they're implemented, just know that they're given to you. This output object, you can $index into it and assign these render functions in order to tell Shiny, here's what I want to put inside of this dump, and here's what I want to put inside of this plot. In the case of dump, I want to take whatever's inside of my render print call and capture whatever is printed by this code, and then return that to the browser and put that in wherever dump is. So in this case, what are we doing? Up here, the choices are all the variables that are inside of the datasets package. So what we need to do is take this string that's identified by dataset, and here it is, input $dataset, and go into that package datasets environment and go retrieve that. So that's what this get call is. So it's just a normal R call to go get a dataset based on a string. So now we have this dataset variable, and we just call stir on it. That's all we do. The output's captured, and it's returned to the browser. And plot does almost exactly the same thing. You take a data set, you get the information, and it's returned as data set, and then we just call plot on it. Those are maybe the two simplest things you can do with a data set, but obviously you can get arbitrarily complicated in there. You want to go hog wild with dplyr and building models and other stats stuff, you can do all that. You can use any R package. You can read from any database that R can connect to. You can use any CRAN package. It's all just normal R code. And that's one of the things that our Shiny users have consistently told us, is that once they kind of get the hang of this UI and server thing, when they sit down to write an app, 90% of the effort is spent not on the Shiny parts of it, but the data analysis parts of it. And that's really as it should be, right? And when you're kind of coloring inside the lines of Shiny, that tends to be true. Yeah, well, we'll get back to that little caveat later. Oh, sorry, I wanted to add a couple more things to this. How much time do we have?
As much as you want.
I'm going to see how fast Yiwei can talk. Okay, so let me just do a couple of things more here before we move on. So let me put in one more thing. Let me put a table here. So Shiny also comes with a table output. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. And this time, we don't even do anything to the table except return it. And that's what render table expects us to do. So now when we run it, down here we got a table of all the data. And if I change this to whatever, you can see that it changes. All right. But it's a little annoying to have to scroll around like this, right? I'd like to have these things all up high where I can see them. Let's add something to this main panel called a tab set panel. And inside of a tab set panel, I can put tabs. So first is stir. And I'll have another panel called plot. This went faster in my head.
It's pretty fast.
Do I? Let's see. All right, so now I have tabs, and I can click between them. And as I change these, they update. Oh, that's pretty, okay. Now, I just want to reiterate that these things still are just HTML. So, I think they are. What is happening? Oh, I said restart. Sorry, I'm not sure if I needed to, but. Okay. Apparently, tab panel is not HTML, it's black magic. The tab set panel. All right. So I just want to reiterate that these inputs, outputs, tabs, everything are just convenient ways for you to write HTML without looking at HTML. Great. One more thing I wanted to add to this. Sorry, I lost my keynote. Themes. We don't really have time. I'm just going to do mine. Okay. One thing I forgot to say at the beginning is I don't want you to feel like you need to have followed along with everything that I just wrote. This is not a tutorial. This is hopefully just to get you a sense of the order of magnitude of difficulty it is to get started with Shiny and convince you that it is an order of magnitude that is reasonably within reach. If you want to actually get started with Shiny and get productive with it, I'll show you the links at the end. We have a very detailed tutorial, lots of articles, lots of online resources to help you. Okay. So that was a very simple example of a Shiny app. And not a lot of code. We were able to produce a quick little something that looked reasonable. I just wanted to show you really quickly, as a matter of inspiration, some things that other people have done with Shiny. This is shiny.rstudio.com. This is RStudio's main website for all of our resources that are Shiny related. And one of the things we have is this pretty extensive application gallery. Most of these are just kind of toy applications that are designed to be have very readable code so you can make sense of what's happening and adapt it for your own apps. So here, for example, is a movie explorer. This was written by Winston Cheng, another RStudio developer. He happens to be the maintainer of ggplot. And he wrote this movie explorer app that takes data from, it's not Rotten Tomatoes, but it's like an open source Rotten Tomatoes clone or something out there, where you can have all the data, and it basically does a scatter plot of whatever variables you want to show. So right now it's showing tomato meter on the x-axis, number of reviews on the y-axis. So let's change that to, I don't know, we can look at the year on the x-axis, and we can see that the number of reviews is going up over time. We can see how tomato meter ratings change with time. As I hover over these different points, you can see, hopefully you can see it back there, that you can see the name of the movie, the year, and then the gross box office date, I assume. And we can change some parameters here. We can filter so that we're showing just movies from 1997 on, minimum number of reviews. And we can also mark, sorry, it's automatically doing it. These ones that are like highlighted in, it's yellow or gold or something, I'm colorblind. In addition to being stats editor, I'm colorblind. So you can see which one of these are Oscar winners. Like all other gallery applications on shiny.rstudio.com, you can click on Get Code in the corner here, and you can see all the code that's behind it. Like most Shiny applications, again, this is regular R code, right? We're doing very modern dplyr style data manipulation. We're casting things, and for the most part, it's all pretty straightforward R code with a little bit of magic shiny pixie dust to make these things responsive in a web application world. Yeah, lots of other applications here. I'm just going to show you one more before I move on. This was one of the very first Shiny applications written by someone outside of RStudio. I've changed it a little bit, but it's mostly intact from what it originally was. I'm sorry, has anyone seen this demo before? Has anyone seen me give this demo? Okay, good. This is a retirement simulator. It takes a number of assumptions about how much money you're starting with, what kind of return on your investment, what kind of volatility, what's the rate of inflation, how much do you withdraw every month, and how many years you want to run the simulation for. And then you tell it how many simulations you want to run. And down here, it's showing the result of running the simulation 200 times with these assumptions. So the y-axis is showing how many millions of dollars you had. That's optimistic. And on the x-axis, you have the number of months. So you can see that these simulations that kind of crash and burn down here, you did not nearly make it to death being solvent. But up here, wow, you're killing it. And down here is perfect. You died broke. That's exactly what you want. So I can change some of these assumptions. Well, first of all, I can say, well, maybe those 200 happen to be lucky. Let me hit rerun and have it re-execute. This is embarrassing. Okay. This was written before we had progress indicators in Shiny. So I can rerun it and just see, how much of it is just because this batch of runs was weird. And then I can say, what happens if I change my assumptions? What happens if I didn't save that well? Start out with 1.1 million instead of 2. Okay, we're hosed, right? Monthly capital. Well, girls got to eat. I should have picked a gender-specific pronoun. I'm sorry. Okay, so on the right side here, we have exactly the same set of assumptions, but you can pick a different set of values. So this way you can compare side by side how much one variable or another affects your outcomes without having to remember and swap back and forth. Okay. This, like many Shiny applications, both on our gallery and in the wild, was written by someone with, I believe, no HTML, CSS, or JavaScript skill whatsoever. And once again, we're looking at our code. Nothing magical about it. Okay, there's lots more on the Shiny gallery. Highly encourage you to check it out. If you have any questions about how something is implemented, you can dive into the code. And if it's still not clear, you can ask for help on our forums. Any questions? Run this in some kind of secure environment, or sorry, in an insecure environment, and you want authentication and encryption and those kinds of things. Is there a widget or something you can drop into it? Some people have tried to solve this by adding widgets. That's exactly the wrong way to solve the problem, unfortunately. What you want is a secure server. You don't want to have an insecure app that enforces authentication, on the client side or anything like that. And the answer is, if you want to run apps not just on your desktop but in production, we have an open source and a commercial server versions of something called Shiny Server. Okay. Currently runs only on Linux. It is designed to take these Shiny applications and run them in the wild. The open source version does not give you authentication or encryption, so it's for stuff that's just freely open. That is, I believe, AGPL 3 licensed. If you want authentication, if you want encryption, if you want the ability to scale up past a certain number of R processes, whatever, then you'll need the pro version. And I guess I may as well just say it. It's $10,000 a year. If you are an educational institution or a small business, it is $2,500 a year. And if you are a teacher or something, it's free. Is that that fully answer? Okay. There is also a cloud version of this stuff that has very different price points, more like in the dozens of dollars a month or something like that. That also you can get some of these same capabilities with regards to security and scalability. So, right. Okay, so I want to kind of go on a little bit of a tangent and just talk about some things that R can do. If you're ever on R Help or you see a question raised on R bloggers or on Twitter, and somebody says, "I want to do X. Can R do X?" I know a little bit about stats. I can't even tell you what an X. I can't even give you an example. But can R do some kind of statistical method, or can it do? Can you, before they're shiny, can you build web applications in R? And the first time somebody asks this, the answer is, it's possible. R is a programming language. It's just it's possible, but it's never been done before. Once the first few people figure it out, they'll say, try this snippet I found on GitHub or R bloggers, Stack Overflow. The information's out there. It may not be easy, but you can do it. And if it turns out to be something that's really useful and somebody goes through the trouble to really make it easy, then you can say, use one of these 6 CRAN packages. That's the total other end of the spectrum. So on one end of the spectrum, it's possible it's going to hurt. On the other side, of course, you just do flop. So I've been thinking about this lately with this metaphor, that when you're trying to do something that's never been done before, it's like you're trying to cut a path through the jungle. Right? If you have the persistence, you can do it. It's going to hurt. You may take some wrong turns, but it's doable. Once someone's done it and has showed the world it's possible, and you can follow my example, that's more like a road, right? Now, anyone with the patience can go down that road, but you need to find the road. You need to know that the road exists. And once it's a CRAN package, and especially if Hadley wrote it, now it's a super highway, right? It's I-10. I think that's I-10. Now everybody knows that this thing exists and it's easy. And that's really where the sweet spot is for R. The more things that are on the super highway, the better we all do as a community. So we get a lot of questions for Shiny about this kind of stuff. Can Shiny do X? And often the jungle is, it's possible if you know JavaScript. Right? You can just drop down, plop in whatever JavaScript you want, and sure, you can do that. You can, well, the obvious question is, can you handle D3 for whatever that means? Yeah, it's possible, JavaScript. And that's not a satisfying answer. The whole reason for using Shiny is to free people from having to do a lot of JavaScript. The road is, oh yeah, I figured out the JavaScript. This example app is somewhere. It's painful, but it works. And the interstate is, oh yeah, here's a package. Or better yet, that's a built-in feature of Shiny. So you don't need to ask how you do tags. It's right in Shiny. Just say, question tags, or tabs. Okay, and the reason I bring this up is because over the last couple of years, as Shiny has been maturing, well, we were just happy that we had a jungle, right? We were happy to offer you, this thing is possible now from R. Aren't you pleased? And over the last couple of years, it's been more like, oh, people are asking for a lot of these kind of things that we didn't really think of, and we've needed more and more of these kind of roads built out. And now that we've kind of gotten a handle on, oh, people really want to do this interactive JavaScript stuff, that's not going away. Well, now it's time to get serious and start building interstates around this stuff. Right? Some of this is going to segue into what UA has, but I want to show one package, so I want to set the stage a little bit. So what have we been doing lately with Shiny? We've been doing less of the kind of foundational infrastructure work and more building of these highways. So UA and I have both spent a significant amount of time working on this HTML widgets package that UA is going to talk about. And this is really helping other people in the community who know some JavaScript and know some R build superhighways for other R users who don't have a prayer of figuring out the JavaScript you would need to get D3 going in a Shiny app or what have you. So we're really hoping that the creation of this HTML widgets package will mobilize other developers outside of RStudio employ to build these packages. But at the same time, for certain packages, we think they're so important that we want them to exist now. So we've gone ahead and built HTML widget packages for Leaflet, for Digraphs, and DT, which you can find online, and perhaps Yue will show some of those things. And third, outside of HTML widgets, we want to lower the bar for making great-looking Shiny apps that don't all look like each other. If you happen to notice in that quick fly-through of those screenshots in the Shiny gallery, a lot of them kind of have a similar look. That's not a limitation of the technology. That's just the map that we've laid out in the jungle so far, or with superhighways, or I've broken the metaphor. But what we want to do this year is to start making it clear to people, this is how deep the rabbit hole goes. That you can make very, very different looking Shiny apps with no more HTML and JavaScript and CSS expertise needed if somebody would just build the right superhighways. Okay, I've tortured that metaphor enough. So the particular one I'm going to show you now is the Shiny dashboard, this last one that was mentioned. One of the things that Shiny has always been able to do is update its data dynamically. So not just do things in response to a user clicking around, but actually go out and fetch more data and poll and have things kind of come up. And that naturally begs the question, well, can you build dashboards in this? And the answer until now for most people practically has been, yeah, you can. They're mostly going to look like Shiny apps. So we want to make it easy for people to build dashboards that look like dashboards. So here's a demo of that. So you may or may not know that, the contrast isn't very good here. You can see some labels floating in space there. There's actually gray circles around all of them. Maybe I'll change that color in a second. RStudio runs its own cran mirror, and it is defaulted to the cran mirror if you are running RStudio. So we get a fair amount of traffic on here. I couldn't find a lot of good streaming free data sources that I could use for demos. So I created a streaming data source using a little bit of Go code that basically gives you a real-time view into what packages people are downloading. So you can think of this as right at this exact moment, somebody just downloaded Unicode, somebody just downloaded HMISC. Now, for practical reasons, now is actually 1 week ago. They don't actually get the logs from the machines except for once every couple of days. So this is happening in real time, just delayed by 10,800 seconds.
Will it do the future too?
Maybe the next version. So you can see on the upper left-hand side here, it's saying 1.2 downloads per second. In the middle, 106 total downloads since we loaded this page, and then 28 unique users, as well as here's a bubble chart of popularity by package. It really is hard to see, isn't it? Here, what's sorry, this will take but a moment. Color equals maybe like blue would work. Let's try that. There's a lot of blue already, isn't there? Okay. So you can see that these things are kind of transitioning in, and then they kind of slide to a new place when new data comes in. This is a D3 visualization that if you were here for the 5 o'clock class, this is what we built. And then on the right, you've got the packages ranked by how many downloads they've gotten. It's interesting, during business hours, it was like, I don't know, 50 downloads per second. So it really changes as daytime moves across the globe. So you can see here, this looks quite unlike the previous app that we built. I've got two tabs here. I've got a dashboard, that's what we're looking at now, and I can click on raw data, and then this will show me a view of the last 25 rows of the underlying data that's streaming in. So you can see the most recent's on the bottom, so you can see that pretty much at least once a second, somebody's downloading a package from somewhere. And we have all this data about where they're coming from in terms of the country. Hope you're not freaking me out. This is all anonymized, so we can't tell who you are. Interestingly, this is live with respect to the data that's being loaded. I actually showed another app in the other class that showed a different representation of the same data. But I bet if we run them both, okay, it's almost the same representation of the same data, but you can see, yeah, there's the optimizer and Shiny coming in. You can see that it is the same data being loaded simultaneously in two places. With this one, you can see what country are people coming from, or you can see, let's look at individuals and see how many packages some individuals are loading versus others.
Is there any way to list all the apps a user has on Shiny.io?
You have to go to the, I think there's either Shiny apps, colon applications, or go to the website. So, or not through the web. No, that doesn't exist, yeah. Okay, and I'm not going to go through the source code in detail, except to show you that in terms of the UI, it looks very different, but it's similarly simple. So Winston Cheng, again, has created this package called Shiny Dashboard, and now all you have to do is make these incantations about dashboard page, dashboard header, and then inputs and outputs, just like we did before. There's all sorts of features that he's built into this that are really, really nice. And if you go to the Shiny Dashboard website, if you just Google Shiny Dashboards, you'll find it. There's a quite extensive guide to how you install and get started with it, along with a list of some of the features you can do. These kind of message drop-downs, you can compose all those from R. You can have notifications and progress bars. Yeah, there's all sorts of cool things here. And he's also got an app that visualizes the positions of buses in Minneapolis. And this also updates live as it goes. Okay, so that's just an example of one package. I think it maybe took him a week and a half to write or something like that. And now, anyone in the R community in the Shiny world can write a dashboard that looks like that with no HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. Okay, so that's all I have. I just want to encourage you for next steps. If you're not convinced yet, take a look at the gallery, take a look at some of the other capabilities that you can do with Shiny. And if you're ready to get started, the Shiny tutorial is a really great piece of work by Garrett Rowland. It goes into step-by-step detail of how you'll build your first 6 Shiny apps. And then when you're ready to go deeper, we've got dozens of articles about Shiny on the website. And when you inevitably, your reach exceeds your grasp, then hit us up on Shiny Discuss on Google Groups. We don't always turn things around as quickly as we like, but we try to do the best we can there. Any questions before I hand it over to you, Wei?
Is the app responsive? It seems like you guys are using Bootstrap or something.
That is a good question. It is responsive. And in case you're not familiar with what that means, if if I were to view this app on my phone, say, I shrink it down like that, it suddenly appears like this. Well, this is a weird example. So let me go back to the CRAN dashboard. I actually didn't know until earlier today. I was checking if it was alive, and I used my phone, and it looked good, but totally different on my phone. So this is how it would look on your phone. Wow. And if you want to get at that sidebar, it's still there. It's hidden behind this standard here. Oh yeah, and this slider is just to show that you can still do, you're not streaming anymore, you can make decisions, you can have inputs and outputs. So. Okay. Any other questions?
Performance-wise, the R code's executed on your server, and the visualizations, other than basic bar processing, are done client-side, right?
Yeah, the question was performance-wise, is it correct that the R code is all run on the server and the visualization, if it's JavaScript heavy or something, is on the client? That's exactly right. So the server will just go as fast as it can, churning out the data, and if there's dynamic stuff happening on the browser side, that's your computer that's checking through it. Yeah. If you let this run for long enough, it will slow down your phone quite a bit. There's a lot of packages out there. Yeah.
What's the timeline for the other cloud hosting plans? They currently say coming soon, a few of them on your website.
Oh, really? The cloud hosting? So the cloud hosting has just gone into beta, I believe, which means we've unveiled our pricing and the functionality that we intend to ship. And I shouldn't say, I don't know off the top of my head, but it was, let's say, weeks to small numbers of months before that intends to go final. So I hope that's right. Okay, any other questions? Okay.
How is it doing the streaming for this particular kind of thing?
How's it doing the streaming for this particular thing? It's really fun. Love to talk about it. I don't think I have time now. This source code is available online, and I'd be happy to talk you through it after this as well. In a nutshell, there is a raw TCP socket that you can listen on. You can actually, it's public, anyone can do this. You can open up your terminal and say netcache RStudio.com 6789. I don't know if it's advisable for maybe running this on our production website, but it was there, and I'm happy to so you can see that all it's doing is literally just spewing the raw CSV data out onto the socket. So I just call read CSV on that socket using a kind of a reactive incantation. It's not as crazy as it sounds, and if you look at the website, at the GitHub repo, it's quite straightforward. So, yeah.
You guys done any more work on the reactive debugger that you showed a while back?
No, it still does what it did back then. We haven't done much work on it. There's a feature of Shiny that'll basically let you do a visualization of all the little bits and parts of your Shiny app that might be running in response to a user clicking a button or changing a value. We came out with it, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and yeah, I mean it's pretty much just sat there. I did it for a demo. It's turned out to be somewhat useful, but we have a lot of other highways to go first.